Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 210. I can't believe it's been 210 every single episode. It just feels like... It never ceases to amaze me how many of these are out there now. So this week we got some van casting to go over. We got some good tracks from chipmusic.org. I want to do something a little different. Last couple of months, every week we've been doing van casting and then fail bagging, and that's been pretty much the show. This week I want to head over to just cruise the internet a little bit, and I want to have fun with some internet comments and answer some questions that may or may not have been originally directed at Tiger Claw Radio. Be that as it may, we're going to have a good time. Let's kick things off with a chip tune. This is from chipmusic.org. You can head over there and look it up. Get yourself a copy of the MP3. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. All right. I do indeed have some van casting, but we're going to change the format up. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Let's start by heading over to... We're just going to cruise the internet a little bit. We're just going to cruise. We're going to put it on cruise control. Just hang around and see what we can find. So let's start by figuring out what exactly people are talking about. All right, here we go. Spiderweb Games. This is a comment from a wonderful person on the internet. There are people on this board who played Gene Forge and Avernum. All right, I'm tired of seeing those games on GOG. How are they? What are they about? Well, it sounds like this guy's referring to the Gene Forge saga, which is I almost said trilogy, a series of games. How many are there? 5? Let's see. Let me check my Steam account real quick. Gene Forge. Yeah, 5. That sounds about right. 5 old school CRPGs that were heavily circulated a few years back, and now they just kind of sit in the back of the Steam and GOG catalogs. Now, when I say old school CRPGs, brother, I mean it. These are not games for consoleized JRPG fans. These are like, you're going to crawl through every map one block at a time and really manage your inventory. You're going to be reading a lot of text. You're going to be making your way. But you know what? I played, I think it was the first one. I got an hour in the first one. It seemed like, man, this is a cool game, but I don't know. I would have loved it 10 years ago. But computer fans and RPG fans, people with patience, there's something there for sure, especially if you can get it for cheap. Those are the GeneForge games. Thanks for the email. Let's see what else we got going on. All right. Voting for the game of the year. So, current year, number 3, the currenting, is down to its last 6 weeks. Most releases have dried for devs, big and small. And it's pretty packed. It's been a pretty packed year for releases. And for once, some good stuff with all the usual trash. But what were your favorites? What were the games that made you feel feelings, reminded you what fun was, and went beyond time waster and into personal favorites that you will revisit again in the future? Here are your categories. Choose wisely. Best RPG, best action game, best shooter, best... There's like 20 categories here. Jeez Louise. We're going to simplify this. I'm not a great person to talk to about games of the year. Because if I'm playing it, chances are it came out more than 2 years ago. However, one game that I did enjoy is there were... Let's see. A second. Gotta look it up in my Steam library because that's where my new games show up. River City Melee, which I was really happy to get. I played that for a while. That's a fun game. But although to be fair, I'm entirely banking that on the multiplayer, so I just kind of socked it away from MagFest. River City Melee. It's a good game. I think, what does it go for full price? $20? $20. We have yet to see if it's worth $20. But it's worth, if you're a Steam user, heading out there, adding it to your Steam library. As a matter of fact, while we're on the subject, River City Ransom Underground is half off right now. So I'm finally going to pick that up after it's been released on Steam, taken down from Steam, re-released on Steam with different music, and gone through a really long, drawn-out public court case involving the music. But right now, River City Melee SP, Battle Royale SP, has my vote for Game of the Year by default, because I can't vote for anything that I haven't really played, have I? Although, wouldn't that go to... and I know you guys are going to be pissed at me. I know you are, but I got to keep it rural. Right? We're keeping it rural right here. Oh, you know what? I forgot about shmups. This is a tough one. To just go in cold on games of the year. Weren't there some really good shmups? We had Raiden 5 come out this year on Steam. What is it called? I gotta look it up every time. Blaze. Caladrius Blaze. I did buy that, but I haven't played it, so I can't vote for that either. Oh boy. So I guess by default my game of the year is that River City Ransom Battle Royale game, whose title I've already forgotten because I have now navigated away from it. Excellent question. So you guys out there who are more in tune with what's coming out, or just more in tune with what you're playing, because I bounce around too much, what are your games of the year? If I were to simplify that question, personally as a gamer, what is your gaming experience of the year? And the difference, I mean, just expand that to any game ever released that you experienced this year. Your best gaming experience or your best gaming memory from the last, from January 1st. What would that be? And you know what? I don't even know what that question for me would be either. Maybe the very first time I played the Sega Master System, and I plugged it in and it went that doo-doo that the Master System does when you first hook it up. That's a soundbite that Vintage Video Game Geek has been using forever in his videos, and I finally got it placed where that was. But more importantly, the Master System, for me, playing it this year, ignited video game collecting for me. It just blew it up, and I've acquired in a short time quite a lot of video games, at least for old CF. So the Master System is a good pick for best gaming experience of the last year. And then once I started collecting, I think Devil May Cry felt like the biggest experience, because playing that game made me feel like I got a little taste of what I was missing out on the past few years when I had just been exclusively focusing on Steam. So those are my answers for best gaming experience of the last 12 months. It's a cross between Devil May Cry 1 for the PS2 and the Sega Master System as a whole. Favorite Sega Master System game to date? Altered Beast is good, but I gotta go with... it's escaping me now. Hang On. That's it. Hang On. Hang On has been my favorite experience. Not necessarily the best game for the Sega Master System, not even the best game I own, but starting a local high score board with my son has been amazing. And for that, Hang On is probably yeah, that's maybe that's best experience of 2017. I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm going to think more on that and never get back to you about it. So stick around for that. All right. Let's see if that's any better. I had to take care of something real quick, and I noticed that the needles were peaking. So I'm going to see if I can get us something a little bit more listenable. Is that it? Is that better? All right. I think we're good now. Steam is updating something. What are you doing, Steam? Rust? I forgot I had Rust installed. I haven't played that game in forever. Well, look at all these games. I got a bunch that are going to update. Okay, not a ton, just a couple. Franchise Hockey Manager 4, as well as all the Stadium games. Not Stadium games, the Trackmania games. Trackmania 2 and Shootmania. Okay, I can live with that. What was I talking about again? We were going to do some more responding to comments. Responding not just the comments, but the internet as a whole. To take so stupid. To take part in the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, of what's going on. I really wish I'd have picked out some time. Here we go. This looks like a good one. Alright, banned from video games thread. Post your locked consoles, ungodly long ban times, stupid ban reasons, keep it video game related. Alright, so this guy's got attached is a picture of a Payday ban notice, Payday 2. Let's see what we got here. You've been banned from Payday 2. Discussions from a forum monitor for your post. How long would I get the Hotline Miami 2 content? Okay, just something about other countries. Just says he lives in another country and wants to get certain content. And they banned him for cheating. Okay. Alright, that's dumb. I've got a pretty dumb banned story for you. I don't get banned for things a lot, to be honest with you. But one time it did happen was in 2014 when I was first getting into Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And my daughter was a newborn. She was a brand new baby. I can't remember how old she was, but she must have been like a month or something. Maybe she was a little older than that, but that's how I remember it. So she threw up in the middle of the night. Like, I was up in the middle of the night and I was playing games and everybody else was asleep. So she threw up and my wife heard it and my wife went to help her. And then she said something to me. It was like, oh, kiddo threw up. Can you come help out? Of course. I was in the middle of a CSGO comp game. So priorities being what they are, I just let it lay. I just dropped what I was doing and took care of business. Once I knew that my family was okay, my daughter was sleeping soundly in her bed, and by the way, she was fine. We still don't know what that was about. She didn't get sick or anything. Maybe it was more just spit up, I guess, common for kids. Now my son, on the other hand, just threw up like a sprinkler. He just threw up all the time, but it was more rare for her, so I think it was more of an instance. But anyway, when I went back to the game, knowing that my family was secure, I was banned from CSGO comp play for an entire week. A week! And that week was a compounding of leaving matches and getting kicked out of matches and rage quitting and stuff. So it was for more than that. It's like the kind of thing where every time you get banned, it gets a little more. Like, it's 30 minutes, then it's an hour, then it's 2 hours, then it's 24 hours, then it's 48 hours, then it's a week. So they weren't all my fault, but that one in particular, because I felt like I was doing the right thing, was like, there should have been some way out of that. I don't know. I feel like there should have been some way out. But whatever. You do what you gotta do. That's my ban from video games story. And I think that might about wrap it up. Let's just take a quick peek peek at some of the other awesome stuff. Oh, here we go. This is always a favorite topic of mine that I almost never talk about here on the air. But this is about strangely comfy places and rooms in video games. This is strictly a topic about aesthetics and graphic design and music, just what you see. This is where you can set aside the game mechanics. I mean, a bad game can be comfy. Few games in my life were comfier than Minecraft was in that first year playing. Other comfy games for me include the very first screen, the title screen of Morrowind. When that Morrowind theme music kicks in, you know, it's one of those games where when you turn it on, especially after not having played it in a while, you just leave that title screen on for just a few seconds. And you just let that music roll. That is a comfy place in video games, if you ask me. That's one. Another one is Mabe Village in The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the original Game Boy. Now, that game is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. It's one of the best portable games ever. And I was drawing up my list of the top personal favorite video games of all time. Just a little side project I've been working on, and you better believe that game was on it. Mabe Village in particular, although this might be just because I played it when I was young and impressionable, that was a comfy moment for me. You know, you're waking up in a cottage in the bed in the opening, and you just get out and look around, and there's like animals and stuff. It's a good game. Easily my favorite Zelda game. Is that bad? Although, to be fair, when I was looking around on eBay a week ago, I'd kind of forgotten about this, but I realized that the later Zelda games, not counting the Nintendo 64 ones, are actually quite attainable. Twilight Princess doesn't cost a lot. Is that game any good? I seem to remember hearing that Wind Waker was the one to play, and that's a little bit more expensive, but still not... Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I know this chair is killer. Not prohibitively expensive, right? Like, I would pay $20 for, like, a sweet modern gaming experience, you know, on the console these days. Wind Waker I could pay $20 for. 20, you know, maybe between 20 and 25. That's a lot for a game, especially for me. But I would pay that. I paid more for dumber things, right? Okay. I'm trying to think if this is a real topic or if I'm only giving you a question with one possible response. What are the Zelda games I should go after that I haven't played? Anything that's come out after the Super Nintendo, all right? Throw in the Nintendo 64 ones. Are they really the best? And any good post-SNES Zelda games worth playing? I played Ocarina of Time for about 10 minutes on the computer, on an emulator, and I was like, yeah, this seems okay. And then I kind of put it aside and moved on. But I think that was because it was on the computer, though. I think if I, like, track down a reproduction or like a Nintendo 64 EverDrive, I think I would play it. You know, I had stuff to touch on about EverDrives, too. I realized this past week that an EverDrive for the Sega Genesis is only $30. That is it. $30. 30 for an EverDrive. Not 100, not 80, not 90, 30. That's less than I paid for my flash cart for the original Game Boy, and I never for a second regretted that purchase. I'm so glad that I got that flash card. Even though that's an older one and not the EverDrive brand, and loading games onto it is a freaking nightmare, and I'm honestly not even sure this computer can do it anymore. I was always glad that I had a flash card for the Game Boy. So $30, I might actually make that happen. Although this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, I want to get that, and then 5 minutes later, you know what, I should get that. It's like taking the week off, not just to come at it with a little extra capital. Something I needed to do just to make sure I got my my priorities straight. Be that as it may. All right, let's see. We're 19 minutes in, guys. Let's see if we can hit up another chip tune, then we'll throw it over to the Vancast. You guys are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. And keeping in line with the discussion, here's the Super Mario 64 main theme performed on a Sega Genesis. That's a heck of a track. Mute Ki, M-U-T-E-K-I, is who's credited for that track. That is and that's available on chipmusic.org. Heck of a track. I can't believe I've been sitting on that this long. I probably would have been playing that a lot more here on the air. All right, guys. So we're gonna shoot it over to the Vancast. I've been loving the in-studio work. It's something I haven't done a lot of in a long time. But recording the Vancast, especially on Monday morning, is something that really helps me out. It helps me face Monday. So this is a part where I really get something out of doing the show. So we're going to throw to that in just a minute. But before we do, I just want to take a moment to remind you guys this is a Patreon-supported podcast. So big thanks to the patrons who are keeping this coming back week after week after week. And I've been putting in, especially this last week, I've been putting in some brain power, trying to change the formula a little bit, not too much, but a little bit, so that it doesn't get stale. So I really hope you guys think you're getting your money's worth, because my goal is to make that happen. As a perk, I let these guys have the show. They get it early, not super early, but they get it as soon as it's done. Usually Friday night, sometimes Saturday. Everybody else, Monday is release day, so God bless. Also, I like to name names, if that's all right. So these guys are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. And that is the Hall of Distinguished Patrons here at Tiger Claw Radio. So thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. And again, I surely hope that you feel like you're getting your money's worth. And if not, please let me know. Open to suggestions. Also, my apologies for the delay of the Monster Cast. I have been taking my time with that and looking for an opportunity to get more good material, as opposed to just throwing it together and just letting it drop. So I don't know, maybe I'm making the wrong move. But I've got, I don't know, I could throw all the Monster Cast material I have together and it would just be like a jumbo episode of the normal podcast. Here's a good 2-hour episode. So, I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that, but I haven't forgot about it. All right, so let's do this. Let's jump back to Monday morning. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday. Early Monday, after a long weekend driving off to work. It's the Bandcast here on Tiger Claw Radio. Oh, it feels good. I'm recharged. I'm ready to get back to the office and do what I gotta do. But in the meantime, let's talk some games. Hang on one second. Somebody's been fooling with my car, my air conditioning. All right, here we go. Let's see. I spent all morning editing a video I started on a while back. I wanted to test out the video capture card that I have hooked up in my computer right now. So I recorded some footage from the Dead or Alive Ultimate Collection from the original Xbox, DOA 1 and 2. Did like a quick once-over on the series and recorded like a match apiece. And it took me quite a bit to edit. Editing turned out to be more difficult than I thought it would be, or more complicated anyway. I think complicated or time-consuming does not always equal difficult. It took a while, You learn these tricks where it's like, all right, if I do it this way, then editing will be easy. Every time I do this move, then I have to go in and make the edit, and it makes everything take longer. You know what I mean? So, kind of nailing down a routine on how that's going to work. And this is important because we just had the AliExpress sale. On the 11th, over at AliExpress, there was a big sale they were talking up, 11/11. And so I ordered a bunch of games, and I'm going to have to take a bye week, at the very least, from ordering stuff. And all the stuff I ordered is going to be here for a month. So, I can't imagine in the near future I'll have any of these, hey, let's open these packages type videos. This is a time for me to dig into the packages that I've opened in the past week. Really get my feet wet, get into those games, and let you know what I think. And speaking of which, let's talk about Tiny Tank. Tiny Tank for the PS1. This was one of my main goals when I set out collecting. Well, I got that game, and I really had some ample time to play it. Probably a hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in. It's, you know, there's a Let's Play you can watch where the entire game is beaten in 2 hours. It's taken me a little longer than that. I think just because not knowing exactly where to go. That's a goal-oriented game where you'll be in a fairly small arena. You'll have to go here, do this thing, go there, do that thing. Most times it's pretty apparent what you're supposed to do. There have been a couple of times I've been stuck. Right now in particular, I'm at this one level where a big crane comes out and rips the head off of Tiny Tank and puts it on an enemy tank. Then takes the enemy head and puts it on Tiny Tank. So every time you use the controls, or excuse me, every time you fire, you're firing from the enemy tank, right? So if you just point your tank at the enemy tank and shoot it down, you're killing yourself because that's got your head on it. I don't know, it's really weird. It took me a long time to figure out. So what would happen is I would die, and that's probably like 10 or 15 minutes into a stage. So I'd play through this big painful stage to get back to that part, die, and then play through the same stage, get back to that part, and die again. And I finally beat it. And when I beat it, it took me to another portion. Like the stage kept going afterwards, and I eventually died. And it's like, all right, this is setting me back like 15 or 20 minutes of gameplay. So I took a break from it. So I hit a wall with Tiny Tank. I probably won't be able to go back to it until next weekend because it's reaching a point where I can't just sit down in 5 minutes and knock this stage out. I got to really buckle down and focus and get it done. Also, you've got like 4 or 5 extra lives in that game, and the save file I'd been operating from was down to one extra life. You can die once, and then you die a second time, and it's game over. So while I was taking a break, I started back from the beginning on a separate save file and just started playing through it again. Just playing through those early stages now that I know where to go and know what to do and know how to shoot. Hoping to get back to where I am now. Like if it's really bad, maybe I can get back to where I am now with more extra lives and then beat it that way. I don't know, it's pretty cool. This is like a position that new games are not going to put you in, right? Where it's not just the fact that this part is hard, it's also the fact that I have to play through a stage before I can attempt it. It's a tough situation, and there are games that put me in this spot, and I get mad because of it. One primary example is 13. 13 will do this to you. The first-person shooter that looks like a Belgian comic book. That works off of checkpoints, and you can only save, like, if I remember right, you can only save between levels, or when you save, it only saves at the last checkpoint or something like that. So I don't know. I remember 13 doing this to me too, but I couldn't go into detail. So that was what I played the most of, was Tiny Tank. Wasn't the only thing I played though. What else did I play? I remember I was playing it, and while I was playing it, I was thinking, all right, I should put this aside and just go to something else. Then I looked up at Star Ocean 2, and Star Ocean 2 was calling me. I was like, hey there, Star Ocean 2, how you doing, man? What do you say? You wanna give this thing a try? And I was like, no! I'm not gonna give in. I'm not gonna give up. So I went back to Tiny Tank and started shooting it out again. I don't know. It's a tough spot, man. So I haven't started Star Ocean 2 yet. What I have played more of, though, is the original Phantasy Star. This is a few weeks running now. I wake up early on this weekend. It was Saturday and Sunday, but I wake up early, and I turn it on, and I can hang out with the kids. You know, my son will ask me questions and watch for a while, and my daughter will hang out with us, and we'll just have, like, you know, hangout time. And it's early in the morning on Saturday, so I'm dead tired and not really worth anything. So I can just kind of chill out and play Phantasy Star, which is great. So now I'm a few hours into Phantasy Star, and I'm digging it. I've played this more than I've played any other RPG in many years, I would say, with the exception of, like, maybe Morrowind, because I played a ton of Morrowind. But yeah, impressive game for the 8-bit era, man. I've got to say, especially when you compare it to the first Dragon Quest game, Dragon Warrior. I got to say, I don't know about the later Dragon Warrior games, like Dragon Warrior 3 and 4. I played a bunch of 3. I would say those are better, but just comparing Phantasy Star 1 to Dragon Warrior 1, which maybe is not fair, I would have to give that one to Phantasy Star. And I never would have thought I'd heard myself saying that. Never would have thought that. I'm comparing it to a game I played when I was a kid. Dragon Warrior was like one of my introductions to RPGs. First time I ever saw what an RPG looked like on a console was Dragon Warrior 3. Nintendo was banned from my house at the time. My parents were smashing the Nintendos. We would buy them and they'd smash them. They'd find them and smash them. My older brothers would mastermind these plans where they'd throw in together and get a hold of a Nintendo. We went through a few of them that way. And I walked downstairs one day. My dad had a workshop down there with his power tools and a workbench and stuff. But he was in poor health a lot of the time, and he was an amputee, so he didn't make it down the stairs too much. So what my brothers did was they put a tube TV, which I guess it was just a TV during that time, because it was the 90s. They put a TV right under his workbench in the basement, and they would go downstairs quietly and they'd play Nintendo without anybody knowing. So one day I walked into my dad's workshop. The lights were off, but I could hear my brothers talking, and they were in there, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And on the screen, by the way, a screen I did not know was there, on the screen was Dragon Warrior 3, and I had never seen an RPG on a console before. The only other thing that came close to an RPG I'd ever seen was Wizardry at that point. And that was my introduction. I remember watching the day and night cycle really quickly. That's what sticks out in my mind the most about the first time I ever saw an RPG was the day and night cycle in Dragon Warrior 3. Hang on a second. 4-way stop. All right, I think we are good. And that was it. I don't remember much else because shortly after that game disappeared, and I don't remember how that came to pass. I have to think my parents found our stuff and threw it all out. But that game eventually disappeared, and then after that, I came across Dragon Warrior 1, and that was the game. That was the representative of the Dragon Warrior series for all time after, I think. I didn't come across any other Dragon Warrior games until I was a teenager. And then I think I was like 16, just getting ready to move out. I moved out at 17. So when I was 16, I think I found Dragon Warrior 2 at a pawn shop, and I snapped it up, and I never found 3 or 4. I haven't owned 3 or 4 since then. Did I ever own 4? I don't think I ever did. We owned 3 when I was a kid. My older brothers did. But 4, I think I've only ever seen the ROM in the emulation days. Because I remember when I got into emulators, I remember not thinking there was a Dragon Warrior 4. I didn't know that existed at that time. Hang on a second. All right. Yeah. So. And then I also saw one later when my buddy Angie got into collecting. This was when we were older. One day he just got the collecting bug. We were talking about old games and that did it. He started ordering them. And then I went over to his house. And in his big stack of games, I think it was even boxed. Angie, help me out here. You got a boxed Dragon Warrior 4 in storage somewhere, right? Yeah, that's I think might be the only time I've ever seen one in person. Unless I was at a con and there was one for like a lot of money under the glass. I don't know. I don't really count that kind of thing. You know? Good times. Good times. Played a little bit more Hang On with my son. He beat his old score. He's up to like 21,000 or so now. What else did we do? I still have not introduced him to Super Hang-On. That's something I'm holding on to for a while. I think once Hang-On starts to fade, You know, I'll be like, hey man, did you know there's a Super Hang-On? Open the Sega Genesis, pop that game in, boom. Oh man, this was cool. This is a Pokemon Rumble story. Okay, so here's the thing. My son wanted to play this game, Pokemon Rumble. It's a WiiWare game. Pretty sure it's WiiWare exclusive. Not 100%. Pretty sure it's WiiWare exclusive. I don't know. You guys with modern Nintendo consoles would have to look it up and tell me. I don't know. But WiiWare game, $15. This is a game he really wanted for quite some time. So, okay. All right, man. If you want this game, you know, take care of your business. He had allowance, but I was willing to go halvesies, you know, and then he could get his game, and then I would take the leftover money from the $20 that we had to spend and then buy something else, which I still haven't done. But anyway, we got Pokemon Rumble on the Wii, and that's a pretty good game. Got to do some local multiplayer, some brawling, surprisingly satisfying brawler game starring all the Pokemons, has been great. So the way it worked out, like we had $5 sitting on our account on the Wii after our last transaction, and then we did this thing, so now there's an additional $4, so there's now $9 sitting on the Wii that I have claimed personally. We all agree, is like, okay, I'm gonna spend this on something that I like, and that's fine, because we took care of my boy with Pokemon Rumble. So what is that gonna be? I don't know. The first thing I went to was, alright, let's go check out the TurboGrafx 16 games. I want to check out the TurboGrafx 16 games, I want to check out the shmups. And then it's like, alright, if you're gonna sort by genre, the Wii doesn't do genres very well. There's no shmup genre. It's just shooters, where they have more like Kaiser's concept of a shmup, where it's like that could include like Contra or something like that. Side scrollers and shmups are kind of mixed together. It's like, alright, come on guys. But long story short, I have to do some Googling of some titles to see what's worth getting. And I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know what it's going to be. My knee-jerk reaction was, let's get R-Type. But there's a couple import games on the TurboGrafx 16 that I think might be neat to own. So I'm going to have to look up some footage and see what's good and what isn't. Yeah, I think this would be an excellent chance to try something, like a PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 game. You know, in a real console setting, and see if it's worth pursuing that system to me. And that'd be cool. I think that would be good, because 2018 kind of deal. Get a hold of a TurboGrafx 16 and a flash card. Let's do it. I've been talking about it for like 4 weeks in a row now. Let's get the ball rolling. Here's a question, and I need an answer to this before I do that. If I were to spend $125 on a gaming item, which would I rather own? A complete version of In the Hunt, long box edition for the PS1, the side-scrolling shmup with a submarine, precursor to the Metal Slug games, or TurboGrafx 16 with no games. Just my foot in the door of the TurboGrafx 16 era. Which of those two would I rather own? I don't know. Sitting here right now on a Monday morning at 6:42, driving to work, I'm kind of thinking In the Hunt for the PS1. But I don't know. These are the kind of questions you got to get answers to before you make these big steps in collecting. But more on that later. That's something I've been doing a lot of thinking on and not a lot of decision making on, you know? I think at this point I'm just happy making my small purchases. Also, last week Dumays raised a question that I've also been thinking very hard about. we were talking about EverDrives. Getting an EverDrive versus getting a reproduction cartridge. And this is especially on my mind due to the AliExpress sale. And he's thinking, look, if you're going to spend $100 on reproduction cartridges, you know what was $10 a cartridge, so what? 10 reproduction carts? Or maybe 20 if you're talking about the Sega, because Sega's got a bunch for cheap. Why not just get a flash card? Why not get an EverDrive? What are you getting from 10 reproduction carts that you're not getting from an EverDrive with 10 games on it? I don't know if I know the answer to that, except that the EverDrive is a single large purchase, whereas I can order, a repro or two a week and be fine. So that's another thing I really got to think about. Is an EverDrive something that I want to pursue for one of my current systems? I got a lot of systems, so that'd be a big decision, man. Well, which would it be? What's the system I want the EverDrive for? Knee-jerk reaction, I'm going to be honest with you. Knee-jerk reaction, Nintendo 64. Do they have an EverDrive for the 64? I mean, I imagine they do, right? They got them for all the other systems. I have to look this up. But Nintendo 64 is a console with a lot of games that are rare and expensive that I feel like shouldn't be. So that would be one. I don't know. You could say that about Super Nintendo as well. But the thing about the Super Nintendo is more easily emulated. So I feel like if you were to get a Nintendo 64 EverDrive, assuming something like that exists, I'm assuming that there is a decent EverDrive for the 64. I feel like that would open more doors. But again, I'll have to take a look and see if that is, in fact, reality. NES, Game Boy, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. I know all these systems have them. But that one, I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see. Man. Oh. Car seat sliding around in the back. It's not belted in. All I know is there's no way in the world I'm going to pay $180 or $150 for Worms Armageddon on the Nintendo 64. And the reproduction charge of $21 still feels really expensive to me. Get yourself an EverDrive, give me $100. Then you can get yourself a copy of GoldenEye, Mischief Makers, Pokemon Puzzle League, Worms Armageddon, which I'm sure I'll play once. That's pretty close to $100 right there. I don't know. It's a tough choice. Tough decision. Because on the other hand, I think the only real game that's left on my get list, or the only games plural, for the Nintendo 64, what else do I have left to buy? Well, I want to get a copy of Mischief Makers. I want to get a copy of the original GoldenEye. That's really it. Pokemon Puzzle League, if I find it in a deal. But I got that on the Wii, and the Wii is my wife's preferred platform for that game. So that's not really a priority. That's just like, look, if I'm cruising eBay one day, if I see it for $5 or $6 and I got $5 or $6, I'll throw a bid down. I know I'm not going to get it for that, but in the short time I've been collecting again, I've already been surprised. That's why I have two copies of Great Baseball. That's the reason I got a hold of Jet Force Gemini. That's the reason I got a hold of Perfect Dark. Was just throwing down bids when it was low and being surprised. Okay, so back to collecting strategy. I'm going to take a bye week, collect my weekly fun money allowance, and just sit on it so that I can come back again next weekend with a little bit more venture capital, see if I can make some better purchases. I don't know. I think I just also need the time to play what I got. So that's where I'm at right now with video games. And we are, geez Louise, 22 minutes in. This is what happens This is what happens when I feel like I get a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, and I just have like one car ride to just get it all out. Just get everything out. Which is great. It's nice being able to talk about video games and not get interrupted with family crisis. It really is. But I also don't like these things running this long. I feel like there's a danger of the podcast getting boring if you don't break it up. So, let's do this, boys and girls. Let's shoot it back to the ever so comfortable Panzer Studios. Oh, by the way, thanks for hanging in with me on this extra large Vancast. I'll see you guys there. Ah, yes, nice and comfortable in Panzer Studios. Feeling good and just hanging out, enjoying Friday. And I hope you guys are enjoying your Monday. Okay, so let's do this. We are 47 minutes and 30 seconds into the podcast. Before we let any more time go by, let's just go to the Vancast. The Vancast again. No, not the Vancast again. We are going to go to the fail bag, and we're going to read our comments, emails, whatever it is you have that you want to, if you want to interact, you got any comments, let me know. Best place to leave these is in the YouTube comments of the video. You can also leave them on the next round. Those are the two big places. I know you personally, you can send me an email. Just make sure you say in the subject line whether it's for TCR or not so that I know. And speaking of that, I had a few emails from good old Hemrock, a very, very old friend of mine, somebody who literally emailed me after episode 1 of TCR, back when it was just random MP3s uploaded onto Mega Upload. All right, so let's see. We've got a few of these, and I'm not sure which of these have and have not been read, Hemrock, so bear with me. We've got one for 209, 208, and 207. Let's go back to 207 and see what it says. Oh no, those are my sent emails. Alright, through the magic of editing, I've been able to look around through my mailbox for quite some time. When did these come in? I have an email from Hemrock from 2009 that says Tiger Claw TV podcast. I'd love to read that someday. I think this is it. I think this is the response to the very first episode. Yeah, Hemrock. And he writes pronounced Hemrock. I'm not going to read it this time, but let me know. You okay with me reading this on the air, brah? Should I say it's probably on the air. It's not the best place to ask him that, but oh well. What are you going to do? Come on, man. Come on, Hemrock. Where are your emails? Where are they, dude? Oh, okay. I'm looking in the wrong place. All right. If I go back, there we go. Fail bag. Jeez Louise, that took way longer than it should have. All right. Ow, something's on my hand. Oh, that hurt. Okay, so here's the email. He writes, "Hey, CF, hope you're feeling better. You are feeling better in the nice and cozy Panzer Studios. Hats off to you for getting an episode despite being sick. That takes some commitment. The Power Supply album from Anime Neguchi is probably the best free 8-bit album I've ever heard. Good times. Yeah, Morrowind. Speaking of Elder Scrolls, did you ever play Daggerfall for DOS? What'd you think about it? I'm not kidding. I'll contribute if you start a PayPal collection for Burger Rider. It might be hard to get a hold of him, though. Thank you for pointing out Brian Lunduke. I like his channel. Good stuff. Have you ever played Master of Magic? If not, I think you'd like it. Now, having played the Famicom for a while, what are your top 5 games and top 5 games you want? Keep rolling retro, Hemrock." All right. Power Supply is a classic. It is a classic. I would also venture to say it might be Anime Neguchi's finest work. The only thing I think that they did that rivals it is the summer 2010 demos. Do you remember those? The follow-up, which I believe was called Endless Fantasy. I remember it because it had the girl on the cover with the cube. That was a pretty good album. Don't think it quite held a candle to Power Supply. I think it was supposed to because Power Supply only had like 5 tracks on it, and this was like a full length. Doesn't matter. 5 amazing historic tracks will beat a full length any day of the week. But yeah, I completely agree. Brian Lunduke, the Lunduke Hour, or which he now renamed the Lunduke Show. Really good stuff. That is a talented individual. What issue? Did I play Daggerfall for DOS? I remember testing it once and feeling a little bit wibbly wobbly with the controls. So I didn't get far in it, but that's about it. I didn't give it a real play. I would love to though, because all the things I hear about Daggerfall everything I hear about Daggerfall, coupled with the screenshots I see, make it sound amazing. I want to like it and play it, but I never gave it a fair shot, apart from that one test. So, is it in the cards for me? Absolutely. But that hasn't happened yet. Finally, you asked about Master of Magic. That rings a bell. Give me a second. I want to look it up so I can take a look. Master of Magic. And I know that's an oldie. Oh, come on, man. Type better. Master of Magic. That might not be on Steam. I might have to head over to GOG to see about that one. I know that name, though. That's like a real old game, isn't it? We're going to find out. Okay. Let's head over to GOG.com where they actually know what's up. Oh, yeah, GOG. Special promo. West of Loathing, Westorado, Desperados, up to more. Okay. Alright, we'll worry about that another time. Right now, we're looking at Master of Magic. Master of Magic. There it is. 1994 Simtex Atari. Let's load it up and see some screenshots. Where have I seen this game before? I have seen this, Hemrock, but I don't know where. I wonder if it was on the Ultimate RPG Archives. It may have been. That might be where I know it. Okay, so just to recap, something I've told a million times on the air, Ultimate RPG Archives was a CD-ROM based RPG box set that I bought in the late 90s. I bought it because it had Wizardry Gold in it, but it also had Bard's Tale 1, 2, 3 and the Bard's Tale construction set. It had Might and Magic Worlds of Zine, I think 1 and 2. It had a game called Stone Keep. It had a game called it had Ultima Underground 1 and 2, and I think it might have had Master of Magic on it, but I'm not 100% sure of that. Most of the time I spent playing that box set, I spent playing. My older brother played the goodness out of Wizardry 7 or Wizardry Gold, it was called. But I spent most of my time poking around at the Bard's Tale games, specifically the original Bard's Tale and Bard's Tale construction set. It was an amazing box set. It had all the full manuals for every game put together in one gigantic phone book of manuals, and I think this might have been in it. So have I played it? No. Have I owned it? Yeah, I think I have. But don't know for sure. It looks great. It looks old, but it looks great. Not on Steam, apparently. $5.99. I'll tell you what, Hemrock. Let me revisit this during the winter sales, because this is not an expensive game either. $5.99. This is probably like abandonware fodder. I bet 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you could have found this on like XTC abandonware or something in a zip file for free. Like this says 24 megabytes. I'm sure you could have found this for like the size of 2 floppy disks. So what is that? 2.5 megabytes per? A little 5 megabyte zip. I bet it could handle this game. Master of Magic. So to answer your question, no, I've never played it. But thanks for bringing it up. It was fun looking at it. Let's return to the email, see if there's anything else I missed. I think that might have been it. Oh, yes, the Famicom stuff. I gotta be honest, the Famicom got sidetracked a little bit due to the, what is it here? The Master System. But the reality is, the Famicom is downstairs. Most of my consoles are upstairs. The best games, I spent most of the time playing a game that Westerners have come to call River City River City Cross Country, which is that relay race kind of game that you have on Steam as well. That was an amazing game. I spent some time playing Lode Runner Championship Edition, which is, I can't beat a single level in it, but the fact that it exists is just amazing. Lode Runner Championship Edition is basically like, it plays like a bad mod pack for Lode Runner. It's got these crazy hard levels that I can't beat a single one, but apart from that, it's exactly the same game. Exactly. And I love it that it exists. And I have that. I bought it by accident thinking it was the original Lode Runner, and it was not. So that's 2. I played Cycross. That's pretty fun. I wouldn't say it was one of my favorites, though. I love my pachinko games, but I can't cite a particular one. I just go back and forth and just kind of check them out. I like the original pinball for Nintendo. I seem to remember there being something different about the Nintendo pinball for the Famicom. Some sort of little mini game or mode that is not available on the Western NES version. I don't know that that's true, and I have not encountered it yet playing it because I'm not great at it, but I like that game. Speaking of pinball, one game I would like to own is Rollerball for the Famicom. That game I know is slightly different. The 2-player mode has different animals in the background. That's the only real change I can think. Like it's a giraffe and a giraffe and an elephant instead of a donkey and an elephant or something. I don't know. Something really small and inconsequential. But it's $12. Why is it $12? When it comes to games I want for the Famicom, Wizardry was a big one, which I have now, but I haven't messed with it. A lot of the games I wanted are Western Nintendo games, American Nintendo games, that are cheaper and still playable on the Japanese version. For example, I believe the Mega Man games at this point, because they're so expensive if you want like an authentic Mega Man game for the NES, I think it's cheaper to just track down the Rockman games one at a time. At least setting aside the first one. I mean, you could get them for like $10, $20 or something a game. It's a lot, but for those games, they're crazy expensive everywhere else. Urban Champion gets a lot of play because it's a quick on, quick off, and it's so dopey. I just love the fact that I'm actually playing Urban Champion when I turn it on. I don't know how else to explain it than that. Just everything about that game is entertaining to me. Is it a good game? No, but everything about it is entertaining. So Urban Champion definitely gets a lot of play. So that's a quick rundown of my Famicom. Once I get my Famicom hooked up to my master game room system, I'm going to be digging in a lot harder than I am now. Oh, you know what? Another I'm sorry, I'm not counting, but another prize of my Famicom collection would be my Dragon Quest games. A buddy of mine went to Japan, and he brought back boxed complete copies of Dragon Quest 1 through 4. So technically I do have Dragon Warrior 3 and 4 on the Nintendo. I just have the Japanese versions complete, and I can't understand what they're saying, so I can't really play it. I can play the first one though. I can play the first one almost to the end without being able to read a word of English. Which is awesome. Oh, a few additions to the fail bag. Bought the Game & Watch 4 GBA cart based on your recommendation. I own Phantasy Star for the SMS. I sold it on Craigslist to a guy for $20 years ago. Didn't realize it was skyrocketing in price. And how's the Monster Cast going? Okay, I feel like I might have read these already. But you know what? We're going to answer these questions again. I can't find my Game & Watch 4, dude. It's gone. It's gone. And it bothers me because that's a game that's gone up in price. It's not prohibitively expensive, but you don't want to buy that and throw it on the shelf. You want to play that game when you get it. I have one of the earlier Game & Watch games for the Game Boy Color, but I didn't get the Game Boy. I don't have the GBA one anymore. I don't know where it is. And that's a game I had recently. I was playing that last year or something. So I feel like it's not like, oh, it's lost forever. I feel like it's around somewhere, and I just have to scour my room hard enough to make it turn up. But that's a thing. As far as the Monster Cast, it's going. I'm not forcing it because I want it to be a good show. But it is going. Phantasy Star, I think it might be cheaper than I originally thought. I know I've said this on the air, but I think you could get Phantasy. If you watch and you don't do a buy it now, and you just carefully stock, I think you could get a copy of Phantasy Star for $30. At least loose cart, right? I'm confident. But I bought it on the Virtual Console, and I think I got all I needed. I just wanted to play the game. The Wii is currently set up on the family TV. It's one of the only video games that I can play. I don't play violent games around my kids, so that's a game that I'm comfortable with everybody hanging around watching. So I think I'm good with the Virtual Console copy, at least for now. If I beat it and decide I have to own it, then I'll chase it down. But I don't know, dude. I always try and maintain this attitude that, with a few exceptions, I try and collect games to play them. I don't try and collect to collect. But again, there are a few exceptions. I want to get in the hunt for the PS1. That's a game I'm owning. I would own to own. I want to get Resident Evil Long Box Edition for the PS1. That's a game I would own to own. Current games that I have that I own to own, complete in-box, brand new copy of Zelda 2 for the NES. You better believe that still hasn't been played. I have a video up that you can check out of everything that's in that box. That's a game that I own to own. I don't even like Zelda 2. I don't think it's super fun in my opinion. But yeah, buying to play, I should be good on the Phantasy Star front, especially since I have 2 and 3, and I have authentic copies of Phantasy Star 2 and 3, and I've got a reproduction of Phantasy Star 4. So once I beat this first game, if I'm still into it, I can just keep on trucking down the line and just shotgun right through the series. Which, let's face it, we all know is not how that's going to go down. But, I don't know. That's what I like to tell myself. Let's see if there's anyone. By the way, for the failed bag, cheap alternatives to Phantasy Star on the Master System is getting the Game Boy Phantasy Star Collection or Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on the 360, where Phantasy Star is unlockable. I would love to have Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. I would love to have it. I look it up every now and then. Again, not a super expensive game, but you're going to pay for it. I believe it's like $20. But we're going to look at this GBA Phantasy Star game right now, because I remember looking that up a while ago as well, and that being expensive. GBA Phantasy Star. And I know this is terrible. Looking up something on eBay to see what it's worth is just a bad practice. It's just, in all accounts, it's a bad practice. $13.99. Buy it now for with $4 shipping. That's what, $18 for the Phantasy Star trilogy. Not a bad way to go. That's just, first sight, first reasonable price. Here's another one, $13. Whew, I kind of want that. It looks like I can order a loose cart right now for $13. But it's one of these things where when you're buying games off of eBay, it's a different beast from going out there, and pounding the pavement. Because on eBay, there's two prices. There are two fair market values to every game. And by the way, Alex Swingle, I would love for you to weigh in on this, because you're clearly the authority when it comes to eBay. But I've come to realize if you want to order it right now, there's a buy it now value, and there's also the waiting for the auctions value, which tends to be cheaper, but there's a risk of getting sniped or whatnot. I have a feeling that when I get sniped on an auction, it's only because I'm doing it wrong. But I'm working on that. It's like, look, if you put a bid down on a game that you want to buy, and somebody snipes you and they get it for a price you were willing to pay, that means when you set your max bid, you didn't actually put your max bid. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm starting to, when I actually bid on something, it's like, what am I actually willing to pay on this? So I don't know. That's eBay stuff. That's different from video game stuff. So I still feel like I'm returning to eBay after a long time of not doing anything. So I'm learning the ropes of auctioning again. Right now I'm looking at Spectre for the Super Nintendo, which is a bad game, but it's also a game I like, and it's a cheap game. You used to be able to get this for $5. Now not so much, just because, anything Super Nintendo is expensive. Super Nintendo might be a good candidate for an EverDrive, but even now, as I'm saying it, I'm taking it back. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll tell you what, guys. I'll get back to you on that. I'll think about it and then never get back to you on it, and that's the plan. So Hemrock, I hope those are the emails we were referring to when we were talking, because he wrote to me a good while ago, and I was just never getting around to it. Now that that's been read, let's head over to give me a second here. Let's head over to the channel. We're going to look at the comments on the last podcast, see what we can reply to. So give me a second here. Head over to my channel. All right. 209, which took a dip in views lately. Clearly TCR is in a bit of a slump. But it happens. You guys who listen every week, you're still coming back, and I appreciate that. And you know what? That's enough to keep me to keep me in the game. All right, so let's go. TCR 209. Come on now. There we go. We got some comments here. Let's start with Gaming Beast, and then we'll go to Maze. In your previous podcast, you mentioned Altered Beast. I can't deny my love for the game, as I won the Mega Drive version and a t-shirt. Well, it's pretty much a tech demo, showing that it can port arcade originals close to the original. That was something the NES was far from at the time. The SNES was not released yet. To me, it was a fun beat-em-up with a weird setting and a unique, for the time, power-up system. It's more nostalgia than anything, but I remember me and my friend playing it on his Genesis, and we did beat it eventually with no cheats. Very nice. I would guess the Master System one is inferior, but having it would still be cool. Phantasy Star is fun, but a bit repetitive. Yeah, I would agree. I would recommend having the dungeon maps on your smartphone while you play. It will save you some headaches. The dungeons are, even at their worst, are not that bad. Mapping them on graph paper is possible. You mentioned trophy games. I pretty much agree. I mostly want a game to play it. Maybe that's why I almost never watch collector channels except Jerry's and Bitheads, since they often never play the game. It's often just owning it and not playing it. I'm more about playing the games and owning the plastic box they're in. I have some and want to get some more, but I won't pay that much money just to own a rare game. There are so many ways to play older games these days. It's possible to enjoy all of the ones you want. There's still something about swapping the cartridge and having the original that I'm kind of undecided as to what I'm saying. Okay, question of the beast. Have you thought about getting a multi-console machine like the upcoming Polymega or Retro Freak? I'll have to look up what those are, dude, because I don't know. That feature many classics and the Turbo graphics. Very nice. I'm thinking about getting the Retro Freak. I know Swingle is scoffing as he reads this, but is the Raspberry Pi a cheaper and better option? I still feel like having a machine that emulates the games so I can play the NTSC cartridges. It might be worth it. Even if they are Android emulation machines, although the Polymega claims to be a hybrid emulation. All right, you got a lot of stuff here, so let's see what I can unpack for you. I did look into multi-console retro machines. I looked at the Retron 5 as an option for Christmas. The Retron 5 for me, though, was to serve a different purpose. You're talking about getting one to be your primary gaming machine and cut back on the amount of hardware that you need. It would do that. But for me, it was different. I wanted a secondary machine in addition to my normal hardware that I could hook up to the regular TV that my kids could play, right? They could play games on the Retron 5. I wouldn't have to worry about them breaking my traditional consoles. I've gone over this on the air a little bit. One thing I would do is I would buy a 25-foot video cable because they're kids, in case it got knocked off of the table it was on. I wouldn't want it to mess the TV up. So I probably wouldn't buy a Retron 5 for that. I'd probably buy one of the lesser ones, like the Retron 3, which I believe Retron 3 is SNES, Genesis, and NES. Which might be all I need. I don't know. Yeah, I've thought about it, but there's so many other things I want to get before that happens. I don't know. I don't think it's in the cards for me right now. I'm seriously considering something from the TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine family. I want to learn about those, but it looks like you can get a TurboGrafx 16 for like $130. If you have $150, you can walk in, pretty healthy and get a nice complete kit sent to your house. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. That plus an EverDrive, about $250, and then I would be in the game. I don't know. That's a thought that's really been on my mind for a while. The only thing that's stopping me is I have close to that amount. Not that much money, but pretty close. And I want to do some learning first. That's a big thing. I'm really worried about purchasing purchasing a console and thinking, realizing, hey, I could have spent just a little bit more and gotten something awesome, or I could have gotten something equal for a little less. I have to know my stuff before I make that distinction. All right, phone, you gotta shut up here. The Retron 5, I don't know how the consoles you mentioned handle it, but the Retron 5 does in fact work by dumping the ROM. Once you put the cartridge in the slot, it dumps the ROM, and then you can play it, and then when you turn it off, it unloads the dump. Which is how it handles save states, because I think you can save state on it. I'm not 100% sure. So, yeah, so I remember seeing that in a video. What that entails or how that's going to affect your experience, I really don't know. I think that means if you play a game that requires a special chip in the game, or on the circuit board, that typically the games that you can't emulate, I think that means those won't work. Guys who know stuff back me up on this one, but we were talking, I think in a previous episode, Dumays let me know that on an EverDrive you can't play you can't play the games that need those, like Virtua Racing or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember, dude. I don't know. I'm not helping at all, am I? All right. Well, that's me. Let's go. Let's see what Dumays has. Thanks for the comments, by the way, Durab. It's always nice to hear from you. I'm glad you're commenting. Dumays has got a few. He says, Phantasy Star turns to doo-doo the moment you get into the dungeons. Wait, hang on 1 second. 1 second here. All right, we're good. Let's get back to the comments. Phantasy Stars turn... Oh, man. Come on, dude. Come on. Just read the comment. They're just words. You can read. Let's read. Phantasy Star turns to doo-doo the moment you get into dungeons. They suck. Everything looks the exact same. Then, it has the traps where you fall down a floor, so you really have no idea where you are. Which is sad, because everything above the dungeons is awesome. If they kept the dungeons like the overworld overhead, the game would have rocked. But once in the dungeons, in my opinion, it becomes unplayable. And I gave up, even back in the day. Alright, Dumays. This is where... the culture you come from in terms of video game choices, I think, makes a difference. Darabka and I think, could handle them. The reason why is because we play these old games where, when I say old games, I'm talking about like late 1970s RPGs, where you get out a piece of graph paper, you take one step, and then you draw 2 lines on that graph paper on what's around that step. Then you take another step, and you draw 2 lines. And then you take another step, and you draw 2 lines. So that does a couple of things. You get an accurate map. Every time you die, you're still progressing because your map is unfolding. And also, you can draw lines on that map where the traps are. I've been playing the original Phantasy Star. The first cave that you go in where you're actually doing fighting, where you find the guy who's, I think it's Odin, who's turned to stone. That is a very simple cave I was able to do without any maps. And then I freed Odin, and now I have 3 people in my party. You ride the ship back to the other planet, and there's a cave there. And you go in that cave, and it's like, whoo, it's confusing. And that's where I found the pits you're talking about that drop you back down a level. Thankfully, I was able to wander out of that cave. But I'm going to have to either print out a map or get graph paper and make one for myself. I'm inclined to get graph paper and do it, because it goes to figure that doing the graph paper method was such an arduous task and a time-consuming task that was when you were supposed to level up. When you're taking the time to make your map, you run into battles, you gain experience, you pass levels. So let's say you wander into the stage with a map already. Well, then you know where everything is. You can beat the dungeon in half the time. So you get out of the dungeon, and the designers will think that you're a higher level than you actually are. And I think that might... I mean, this is just a theory here. I haven't gotten this far in the game yet. I haven't beat that dungeon, but that might account for some of the grinding that you have to do. Which would be... I guess you would call that a poor design choice. Or maybe a 1980s design choice. I don't know. One or the other. That's just some thoughts. I hit that part, though, and that has been a stumbling block for me. But I'm not ready to give up on the game yet. When I found that part, I had already been playing for like an hour and a half. So I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable enough that I can I can stop playing. And when I found my way out, everybody had leveled up because I was wandering around, and I got a ton of money from wandering around, so I was able to buy better equipment. So, I don't know. Ultimately, it was okay. I'm rambling, aren't I, about Phantasy Star, but I guess that's what we do here. All right, let's see what else Dumaze has to say. He writes, fun fact, they are not labyrinths. Most people confuse this. A true labyrinth is actually just one long tunnel that twists and turns, but is still just one tunnel. Impossible to get lost in. If you go forward the entire time, you will come out the other side. The real word is just a maze, actually. Labyrinth, just along a tunnel shaped... Labyrinth is just a long tunnel shaped into twists and turns. Dumaze, I have to disagree with you here. The actual definition of labyrinth is a movie starring David Bowie with puppets from the Jim Henson Puppet Studio. That's what a labyrinth is. Dumaze also writes, I'm afraid I have too many bastards in PUBG that are using aimbots. I'm sorry, dude. I know it's the worst thing in the world to make fun of the way someone writes a comment. I get in trouble again and again of doing this. But the way you wrote bastards, I think, is hilarious. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm afraid there are too many bastards in PUBG using aimbots. I'm constantly getting sniped from where I can never even see where they are, and they magically seem to never miss. Yeah, dude, I know that's a thing. But let's be honest. You're old enough. I don't know what your gaming background is, but I've seen your channel, and I know that you're old enough to know this. The original Counter-Strike, there were aimbots everywhere. I still had a good time with it. I don't need to always be number one. I played it. That's where the people were. That's where the game was. I think I would play this anyway. I watch Optic Big Timer. He's a YouTuber. Optic is a professional MLG gaming team, something, I don't know. This is an aging man who plays video games on the YouTubins because he was either a pro or a former pro in Call of Duty. Well, he plays H1Z1, which I play, so that makes it fun for me to watch. And every now and then I see him run into cheaters. So he's like, this guy's a cheater. So cheaters are out there, but come on, any game with people there have been cheaters. Any game. Dota 2, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, which I love, all have cheaters. The only thing I can't say is for Overwatch, because I'm not paying for that game. No, sir. But I hear tell that game has cheaters as well. So what are you going to do? I mean, you're right, but is it really every game that it's happening? Is it like that bad? I don't know. PUBG I'm worried about. I want to buy it, but at the same time I don't. But at the same time, dude, I really do. But at the same time, I don't want to buy it. But at the same time, I really do. But at the same time, not really. But at the same time, come on, man, I want to buy that game. But at the same time, you know what I mean? And whenever I find myself in that situation and I pull the trigger, I'm usually so glad I did. All right. Let's see what else we got. If you want to buy my Super EverDrive, your US dollar is high right now. I'd like to sell it so I could buy more expensive SD2 SNES, so it would help me out. Set a price, bro. I can't promise I'll take it, but I'm willing to entertain the thought. I would go with Genesis EverDrive first because it's cheap right now, but if it would help out a friend, I would consider changing my plan. Let me know what you think. And that's it. That's all the comments we have. How are we doing? I think that's everything. I'm just going to take a quick look at the next round. I think I looked at the next round previously, and it had a copy of Sean's comment, because he multi-posted to make sure I don't miss it, which helps out a lot. There have been a lot of instances where I would have missed it otherwise, but he puts it up there and makes it so I can find it. All right, that's all the normal spots. I'm just going to pop by TigerClawTV.com, which I'm still updating. See if I can get something. There's Sean's comment again. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever has brought you here, 1 hour and 21 minutes and 30 seconds into Tiger Claw Radio. Thanks for spending some time and hanging out. Oh, you know what? I had a second thing for the Vancast, but I don't know. I guess we're already an hour and 21 minutes in. There's no way I can play it now. It'll push us to 2 hours. Yeah, so whatever has brought you here, thanks for spending time. I'm rooting for you. Make it a good week. I'm really hoping that it goes well for you. May the future be kind to you out there in podcast land. I'll see you on Monday. No, you know what? We're going to play it anyway. We'll close with a bonus Vancast. All right. We're taking 2 on Wednesday. What's going on, everybody? It is a nice, brisk Wednesday morning. It's cold outside. Cold really should be the word, not brisk. This was a morning where I got in the car and the windshield was frosted over. And it's the first time that's happened this season. So we'll see how that plays out. Last night before I went to bed, I filmed that 2 Extreme video that went up this past week. It was a really fun night for me. 2 Extreme was a game that I played a lot as a teenager. In my middle school days, I was really into those extreme sports games, and 2 Extreme was one that got a lot of play and was really close to my heart. 2 Extreme and also Cool Borders 3, which I haven't repurchased yet. Cool Borders 3 and 2 Extreme. Those were probably the 2 most enduring games of my interest in extreme sports games. They were both very, very good. So yeah, I got to sit down with that. It's kind of crummy because I ordered on eBay. I ordered a black label version of the game, and they sent a greatest hits version. So that kind of pissed me off. But that's what I get for ordering a game through like a stock image. I always told myself, look, if you're going to order a game, you got to have a photo of that game. I need to see a photograph of that particular copy. But in this case, the game was like $350. So I just went for it. I was like, whatever. Let's just see what they send. So I got the greatest hits copy. So what are you going to do? So that was cool. I got to sit down with 2 Extreme for a few minutes. Probably about 20 minutes. And then after 2 Extreme, seems like a weird jump, but I went from 2 Extreme to playing Splatterhouse 2. I played Splatterhouse 2 for probably another 20 minutes or so. That's a game I didn't think much of at first. Like, I played the ROM, and the ROM was, whatever. And then I thought, well, it's a nice little game. I'll get it for, I think $3.80 is what the reproduction cartridge. And I played it last night, which is probably about the 3rd time I've sat down with that game since I bought it. And last night was the first time I was like, this is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, Splatterhouse 2, a better game than I gave it credit for. Not a terribly complex game. Not a terribly, I don't know. I think it's a game that gets talked up a lot as like the second coming, one of the all-time greats. But I don't know about all that, but definitely a charming game, I would say. Now I also got a memory card, which is pretty cool for the PS1 because I got a fair stack of PS1 games that are now new, so I can compound all the new games onto a single memory card, which is awesome. I'm happy about that. See how am I going to work this? 2 Extreme. I have a save file of the high scoreboard, the local high scoreboard, but it's like 10 years old. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of that old save file onto my new memory card. So I preserve the old data, but then when I start playing, I can I can play against my old scores. I think that would be pretty awesome, right? Hang on a second. There we go. So that was my gaming evening. I did that, and I looked over my games a little bit. I made like a pile, a stack, if you will, of all the games that I've purchased in the past few weeks since I started, quote-unquote, collecting again. It's a pretty sizable stack.
I think it might be worth it to make like a video of like just banging through them, throwing out impressions of what I have and haven't played since then. See, of all the games that I've purchased, what would I say is my favorite? I'd say Perfect Dark is probably the most mind-blowing, because I thought that game was dope. Even just being locked into the multiplayer, like the bots match, because I didn't have the expansion. They won't let you play the campaign without it. That was probably the most mind-blowing, but I can't say it's my favorite because I only sat down with it once. Wow, that's a really tough question. Maybe Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is probably the most, probably the game I've been engrossed in the most, even though I haven't played it in like a week now. That was a game where when I started playing it, I was like, man, I've been missing out. I dug it. It's a little samey, just like Splatterhouse. I'm not talking about a Second Coming game. I'm talking about a game that looks pretty good, plays pretty good, and holds my attention. It's like a goofy movie, like a silly action movie. You know what I mean? John Woo didn't make movies that were gonna win Academy Awards, but they were fun to watch. Sometimes. That's Devil May Cry. I never once played Devil May Cry 3. That was the order I got it in. I bought Devil May Cry 3 very shortly after I got the first one. I put off playing them until the first one came, played the first one a few times, never got to number 3. It sits unplayed. And that's something I'm fighting against. I'm fighting against buying games and having them sit unplayed. They should at least be played a little bit. I'm not saying everything needs like a run through, but I'll give you another example. I got that stack of Sega Genesis reproduction cards, right? A week ago or a couple weeks ago, whenever it was. In that stack of 4 games, Splatterhouse 2 is the one that gets played. That's the game I play. I don't at all play Phantasy Star 4. Now, I mean, I feel like that should make sense, because I've been playing the first Phantasy Star. I played that every Sunday morning for a couple of hours, and I feel like I'm already in the middle of an RPG. I feel like if I'm going to start another one, it's not going to be that. It's going to be Star Ocean 2. But I bought it. I paid money for it. I bought the plastic. It's a reproduction. We're not talking about a legit boxed copy or something. And it sits on the shelf. It's unplayed. So that's something that, even though it's understandable in that situation, by and large, I'm fighting against that. For example, Gran Turismo 2. I'm not sure why I bought Gran Turismo 2. I kind of knew when I was buying that one, I was like, this is not going to be a game that resonates with me. But I remember being popular as a kid. I did not own it. I wanted to own it. So I bought it, and I just realized last night, now that I have a PlayStation memory card and I can start, opening up and, really getting into a PlayStation game, knowing that I can save, that game takes like half a memory card or more. Like the back of the box, the part that tells you how many spaces you need on your memory card for any given game. For that one, it says 3 to 15. What does that mean? 15 spaces is an entire memory card. I can only think of 2 games for the PlayStation that took an entire memory card. Number 1 was Fighter Maker, which is a game I owned, and I want to get again, as much as it's like probably one of the worst. It's a terrible game, it really is, but I want to own it. Fighter Maker took an entire memory card because for a single character, because the characters were broken down into several different types of information that you could save. You could save, basic animations. You could save blocking and attacking animations. You could save basic titling information. Those different categories took a different amount of spaces, and if you saved a custom category for all available categories, you had an entire memory card for a single character. That's one. Another one was RPG Maker. RPG Maker was a game where you'd make your game and it would start at one space, and the more you added to it, the more the game would swell and take more spaces on your memory card until you were using an entire memory card. So if you had a really robust game, it would take an entire memory card, but at that point you would put enough time into building your game that it was okay. I find it weird that they're both in the same series, RPG Maker and Fighter Maker, both Age Tech Maker series type games. But yeah, those both took a lot of space. A lot of space. So now I can add Gran Turismo 2 to the mix. Gran Turismo 2 is a game that shows up at thrift stores a lot, or at least it did several years ago. I feel like I could have held out. You know what? It's funnier than that, because I already owned the arcade disc that came with Gran Turismo 2. You open it up and it's got the simulation disc and the arcade disc, and they're separate. I bought some other game many years ago, and it had the arcade disc just in there with the game. So I've had a loose copy of just the arcade disc for a long time. I forgot about that until just now. Yeah. PS1's a great system, man. There's a lot of really great games on it. Hang on a second, driving. I want to get Blast Chamber. That's a game I'd like to own. Blast Chamber is probably... How do I put this? People say things are underrated a lot when I don't think they are. That's a term that gets thrown around on the internet. This game is underrated. You guys know what's underrated? Zelda. Zelda is underrated. No, it's not. It's a great game, but it's also a beloved game. It's not underrated. Blast Chamber is an underrated game. You play in a three-dimensional cube. You're like pushing each other. 4 players, fighting each other over like a crystal. You got to get the crystal to your particular goal to add time to your bomb, right? It is a brilliant and simple local multiplayer game that has never been cloned, which is one of the reasons why I think Blast Chamber is a desirable PS1 game, because it's one of a kind. You know what's an amazing local multiplayer game? Super Smash Brothers. Super Smash Brothers Brawl on the Wii is an amazing local multiplayer game. But we've got 4 iterations of Super Smash Brothers, and on top of that is a game that has been cloned a couple of times. So you can really take your pick from the Smash Brothers buffet. It's very different. When you got Blast Chamber, all there is Blast Chamber. That's it. And this is a game that was local multi for 4 players on the PS1. So in order to play this game to its maximum potential, you had to have a multi-tap. You had to. I'm not saying multi-taps were rare, because they weren't. But since you couldn't order stuff on Amazon like you can now, at that time, it was more of a pain in the butt. I'm not going to use the word rare, but it was a pain. We did get a hold of one, but I think by the time we started getting multi-taps, one of my older brothers that I played games with had moved out, and we were able to get the gang together pretty rarely to take advantage of them. I would love to get multi-taps for my systems, but right now I think the only time I play local multiplayer is when I play with my son. And it's just the 2 of us, so I guess that's not true. It's mostly just me and my son, but there are occasions where I play Bubble Bobble on the Wii, and my daughter joins in. But the thing about that is my daughter is only 3, so she can't keep up with a video game like the rest of us can yet. She loves to be a part of it, but she can't quite keep up. Like, my daughter's a great person to play Sonic the Hedgehog 2 with, because Tails is immortal. I can't remember who posted that recently on Twitter, but it was like, Sonic 2 is the best game to play with a kid. Yeah, I could see that. Give her the controller as Tails, let her just, have a good time. She's part of the game, she can attack the bosses and stuff. I kind of want to do that now. I don't know. I can't remember where I was going with that. I think ultimately what happened in that story was I saw a multi-tap for the Sega Genesis recently, and I wanted to get it because I have a copy of Bomberman on the Sega Genesis now. But I stopped myself because it was like, who am I going to play this with? I could play Bomberman with my son. My son loves Bomberman, which is great. But we don't play it on the Sega Genesis when we play. We typically play on the Wii. The Wii version of Bomberman was very, very good. It was. The only problem with it now is that they shut down the online multiplayer game, and that's where it shined. That version was designed for 8+ players. I mean, because internet, you could make that happen. I got it on the Genesis, and I love the Genesis version of Bomberman. The Genesis version of Bomberman is probably my favorite consoleized Bomberman. It's easily my favorite retro consoleized Bomberman. I would say consoleized, it's a console game. My favorite retro console Bomberman. But, only 2 people. Just gotta get yourself multi-tap. I like the animals in that game. There's the rideable animals don't exist in the Wii version of Bomberman. So I saw the multi-tap. I even got a bunch of controllers for the Genesis. I've got at least 3 controllers, right? Maybe I should get it. So I can play, so my daughter can join it. I think that'd be fun to have a family game of Bomberman going on. See if I can talk my wife into it. Oh, that'd be great. There would be some serious arguments after that game, I think. What do we had? 16 and a half minutes? Wow, this has run a little long. I guess if I were to sum this morning's Vancast up into a single sentence, I wish I could go home and play video games. But I can't. I'm driving to work. And you know what? I'm handling my responsibility as an adult. And that's what we do. I wouldn't say that I'm immature for playing video games, because I handle my business, and I think it's important to keep handling your business. I don't regret going to work. I don't regret the time I spend at work, because I use that time to provide for my family. But I want to go home and play 2 Extreme on the PlayStation. You know what's awesome about 2 Extreme on the PlayStation? You could create a character, and with these lame pre-made graphics, and they gave you like 20 character spaces to name the character. So I used to build characters, and I would call them like apple balls and like crazy stuff like that, because typically in these old games, whenever you name a file or create a character, you'd only get like 6, 7 tops character spaces. I don't know why that amused me as a kid, but I was like, you know what? My skateboarder is going to be called Fart Snacks. It's funny because he's got a silly name. I don't care, man. 2 Extreme was great. You guys don't know. You know what game was not great, though? 3 Extreme. Get yourself a copy of 3 Extreme, boys and girls. I actually kind of want to get that game again. Here's a story for you. I went to summer school one year. I was not a great student in school. I was a bad student. I didn't do very well. I think I had a problem with authority. But I went to summer school one year and for English class, and I got an A. And I think it was the only A I got in my pre-college school career. Post-elementary school, pre-college. The only A I ever got. So I convinced my mom to buy me a PlayStation game. It was great. So I went to the store. I went to Toys R Us. And Toys R Us at the time had this system, which you probably heard people talk about, where you would pull a card on a video game. The games would be behind glass, and you would pull out like a piece of paper, and you'd take it to the counter, and you'd buy the piece of paper. Then you'd take the paper to the claim desk, and they'd give you whatever the game was. Now, when I was a kid, I would go to the claim desk, and I'd watch the clerk go behind the counter into this little secure room He'd open the door to the secure room, close it behind him, and get the game. Now, the moment he'd open the door and close it, I could see in for a second, and I would see, like, top to bottom, 1 billion games. Now, think about when you watch YouTube and you see a collector talking on YouTube. The typical format is the guy makes a shelf, he puts his video games on the shelf, and he stands in front of it. So when he talks, you can see the games in his collection. That's the cliche that we see on YouTube. Actually, I'll probably end up doing that before too long. But this was 1,000,000 times better because you were looking at complete inbox, unopened, beautiful, wrapped in cellophane. The industry's brand new hits, the things that everybody was crazy about. For a split second, you could see him floor to ceiling. I was just like, man, if I could just get in that room with a garbage bag, that'd be the day. And by the way, before you say it, of course I'm not suggesting you go clean out your local Toys R Us. This was when I was a little kid. This was when my older brother first got his Game Boy, so I must have been like, I don't know, 9 years old, 8 years old, or something like that. I don't know. Probably even younger. Jeez Louise. I was in like 3rd grade when he got his Game Boy. So this was 1993, maybe 1992. Wow. How old was I then? 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92. Yeah, I was 8 years old. 8 years old! It was not a criminal master plan. Alright? So don't worry. I certainly don't condone that kind of behavior. Oh man, good times. Alright, I'm pretty close to the office now. So I will call that it for today's van casting activities. Looking forward to getting today knocked out. And I'll see you back in the ever so comfortable Panzer Studios.
Goodbye.